Good morning or afternoon. It's morning here. Anyway, we were going to go on to lesson 14, which has to do with another civilization that was huge during the time probably around the time of Abraham or even sooner. But the weird thing about this civilization was that it wasn't in the Middle East or Europe or even Africa. But this civilization was way across the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, way over in the South America. So how did they find out and how did they know about this? It's kind of strange because how did those people get over there? So when I think of that, we always go back to a time in the Bible that said, as in the days of Peleg, that the language was divided and the people were divided. The land was divided. So what time was that? I was thinking, oh, wow. There was a time after the flood, 4 generations after the flood, probably a little bit before Abraham, that the land was divided. Why was the land divided? What happened there? Do you remember the Tower of Babel? The Tower of Babel, the people, Nimrod was trying to build up as high as the sky, to build to heaven, and he was trying to take over everything that was really God's domain. And in doing that, in trying to build, God crushed down, didn't let them build this building up to heaven. Of course, it wouldn't have got to heaven, but because of their attitude, he divided the languages, and the people spoke different languages. And he divided the land somehow. So that kind of answers our question, how in South America these things could have happened. Also, what happened during the 4th generation after the flood is that there was an ice age. And during the ice age, the waters were drawn back up into the caps during the ice age, and there were probably different land bridges. We know the Bering Strait Bridge for sure, that would go to these faraway areas. Maybe that's how the kangaroos got to Australia, and that's maybe how people were dispersed, or maybe it was miraculously. We don't know. God did a lot of miraculous things back then, and he still does. Okay, let's go on, because this is very interesting. So, lesson 14, the city of Caral. What happened? Okay, they were there by Lima, Peru, and Dr. Ruth Shady, who was an anthropologist studies people, traveled there, and as they began to excavate, they knew that there was some civilization under this area, but as she began to excavate, that means, dig through, and she had the whole Peruvian army coming and digging for her, and as she dug, she found pyramids. Wow! Like Egypt? Similar? These people were building similar pyramids. Maybe not in the exact same way, but they sure were quite alike. That's for sure. So it was in 1994, which is not that long ago, up in these Andes Mountains there by the Supra River, and they called it Caral Supra or Chicasagara or something like that, a weird name. But anyway, these pyramids, they found 6 large pyramids, and they were sunken with these circular patterns around them, which you can see in the pictures. And they thought, did the people of Egypt come over here? Or did they have the same idea of how to build these things? The sad thing is they were building them again, not to the true and living God, but to false idols that they had made up gods. So, of course, this too, just like Egypt, these Caral pyramids didn't last. We don't have them today, and they're underground. But anyway, going back to these pyramids, they were 60 feet tall, 500 feet around, pretty big things. And their construction was a little different because they cut these stones, but they put these woven reed bags around and they put plaster over them, which was a little bit different than they did in Giza in Egypt, as you would call. And then homes surrounded this whole pyramid. They had a whole civilization there, just like similar to Egypt. Can you believe that? And they even found a quipu. What is a quipu? There's a picture of it. It looks pretty weird in your book on page, what is that, 95. A quipu is what they used to count. Huh. They had this brown cotton string there, and they wrapped it around these sticks, and then they had used this to keep records and such. And they had, like, one would be the ones, and one would be the tens, and one would be the hundreds. They were counting. That was their math. That was their math calculator. Can you believe that? A strange math calculator, don't you think? They also got their food and clothing most from the ocean because they were probably about 12 miles away from the ocean. They built a canal along the Super River, and they irrigated crops. They grew fruit, vegetables, beans, squash. It was kind of weird because they grew squash, what they didn't have in Europe, and guava, and the potato, the sweet potato. And as you recall, they didn't have sweet potatoes. That was a new thing in the Americans with the sweet potatoes, and chili peppers, another thing that would be new to the Europeans back then. And also chocolate. Yum. Yeah. I think I want one right now. But anyway, and they did not cook in clay pots. That was very unusual. They cooked like over, a fire they made these little fire like campground fires and cooked there. They had reed baskets that they put all their stuff in. They also had art and music, but they didn't have a lot of decorations yet, but they had some art on things. And they used the horns from llamas and alpacas and pelicans and condors. Condors, those birds. You guys know those animals, don't you? They used cactus and yucca and cacao, all these things. And there wasn't any evidence that they had guns, or of course they didn't have guns there, or swords or spears or any kind of way to fight each other. So they thought maybe they were peaceful. Yet, we don't know for sure because, people and their nature, they could even fight with rocks. You know that. But anyway, so Caral in Peru. So remember this very unusual finding, and one of the the most ancient civilization that they've ever found in the Americas. Can you believe that? And the same time about Abraham's time or sooner. So isn't it amazing, God and his mercy and his grace, yet he could have destroyed all those people, but he let them choose. He lets us choose to serve him or not to, even as civilizations. So as you see in your book, you can see all these pictures. Look into this, and maybe someday, if we ever get to South America, Peru, we can go down there and see what Dr. Ruth Shady found. Wouldn't that be fun?